Welcome back to Objective 2 in Chapter 1 of Unit 8 of the 4th Class Power Engineering series. So in this objective we're going to describe basic electrical circuits, which will be a nice progression from Objective 1 that we just finished covering. Okay, so in terms of basic electrical circuits, there are some symbols that you should be familiar with as we see them time and time and again. An electrical wire, i.e. a conductor, is simply illustrated with a straight line. And of course these lines can turn corners and make 90-degree turns, etc., but just a simple line is representative of a conductor or a wire. An electrical resistor, that which resists the flow of electrical current, which we'll get to later, that is given the symbol as this sort of zigzag type of line. This is the North American symbol. The European symbol shows it as a rectangle. So you sometimes see either or. The next one is a light bulb, or in the electrical engineering world, this is actually called a lamp, as bulbs grow in the garden. It's an old saying. But a light bulb is simply a load for the electrical current. In other words, it will generate light and heat from having electricity pass through it. The next symbol moving down on our diagram here is that of an electrical cell. Now, a cell is simply comprised of a positive plate and a negative plate. The way it's drawn here in the diagram is that the small plate is the negative one and the longer plate, that is the positive one. And a cell is simply comprised of two plates with a conductive material in between them, such as carbon, for example. We won't get into battery construction too much as it's beyond the scope of this particular course. When we now stick a series of these cells together, we then get known, or what's known as a battery. And a more global term for a battery is that of a voltaic pile, named after a gentleman called Alessandro Volta that invented it basically. And a battery is simply a source of direct current, which again we'll get into a little bit later. Now, the last component that we're going to need for a basic electrical circuit is a means to stop and start the electrical flow, i.e. the flow of electrons. And that's simply going to be achieved with a switch. When the switch is in the open position, as it's shown now, electrical current will not flow. When the switch is in the closed position, electrical current will flow. However, be aware that switches are rated to the circuits in which they are used upon. If there is a sufficiently large enough current in the circuit and the distance between the open contacts is not great enough, electrical current will jump from the terminal to the switch, and that is referred to as arcing, and this is to be avoided. We'll get into this more in the last chapter of this unit, but just be aware that switches, like any other electrical component, are rated for which the circuits they are used upon, no greater than. Okay, so now that we know what those basic symbols are, let's take a look at the four things that really any electrical circuit is going to require. That is a source of EMF. An EMF from our previous video or previous objective is electromotive force, i.e. voltage or potential difference. And this is basically electrical pressure that drives the flow of electrons around the circuit. Conventionally speaking, as indicated in the diagram here, positive around to negative. The next thing we need is a load. That's going to draw the electrical current and then do something with it, i.e. produce light and heat, produce rotation, for example, do whatever we need it to do. And that will be the source of power in terms of what will use the electrical power. Third, the control mechanism that we just discussed, i.e. a switch. And finally, number 4, we're going to need a complete conducting path of current carrying conductors. Now in electrical circuits, these are typically of course made of copper, but you will also find aluminum is very popular also. In more esoteric applications such as electronics, we also find things being used such as platinum, silver, gold, mercury, things like that. But at the end of the day, they are all excellent conductors. Okay, so putting all that together then, here is a simple application from figure 5 of a simple flashlight circuit. So in the top diagram here, what you can see is here that we have our 2-cell battery we have our switch, we have our light bulb, and we have our complete conducting path with our conductors. So those are our four components: the source of EMF, the battery, the conducting path, i.e. the wire, the load, in this case the light bulb, and finally a means of control, that is a switch. Now at the moment in the top diagram, the switch is open, so no current is flowing, so that means that the light bulb is not lighting up. In the diagram below, you can now see that the switch is in the closed position, which means our current flow is now going positive to negative, conventionally speaking, and you can see, of course, that now the light is indicated as being lit. So now, of course, after you press the flashlight button, or you twist the end of the flashlight, we then produce light out the end of it. That's all that's going on here. Okay, so in another application for a typical electrical circuit, we often see circuits being used to drive electrical motors. And of course, electrical motors we most commonly see as driving things like our forced draft fans, induced draft fans, feed water pumps, transfer pumps, make-up water pumps, generators. Things like that is what we're going to use our electrical motors for. Now these have all of the same things that we've just talked about, i.e. a source of EMF, wire, a load and a switch, but these also indicate something else on this particular diagram. Now a fuse is known as a circuit protective device. And it doesn't have to be a fuse, it can be something like an electrical circuit breaker, either a miniature circuit breaker, MCB, or a moulded case circuit breaker, if it's a big heavy industrial application, and those are known as MCCBs. Now there are a plethora of different types of fuses. The fuse that this little motor circuit is on to you about is something referred to as a motor overload. And the idea of an overload is so that it doesn't trip when we first turn the motor on. Now, to give you a little bit of context for this, you may have had the experience in like a machine shop or a sort of a room or a area that has a lot of electrical equipment in, that when you come in the morning and all the lights are on, and then you go around and turn on all the electrical equipment, the lights dim for a brief second, then they come back up. That is referred to as an overcurrent because the machines are drawing that much current when you turn them all on, and that's what caused the lights to dim. Now motors are notorious for this if they are not being started up on VFDs or with some other type of soft start. We'll get into VFDs or variable frequency drives much later. Now the idea here of a motor overload is to allow that excess current, which can be as high as 6 to 10 times the current rating at startup, to not trip the system. And then once the system has settled down, i.e. the motor is at rotational speed, the fuse will then protect it from any further surges in overcurrent. Induction motors are notorious for this, and we'll talk about this in the actual chapter that discusses electrical motors. Okay, the last thing to mention here in our sort of term is our switch. And there are a variety of different switches depending upon the applications. You see here some simple diagrams in figure 7 of your textbook of simple rocker switches. You don't see these too often. They're generally these days fuse switches, or they're rotational handles or some sort of circuit breaker, but this is merely to indicate you the idea of the concept of a switch. Now, what we can see here on the left-hand diagram is this is referred to as a single pole, single throw. The reason why it's single pole is because the switch is only on one wire of the electrical circuit, and we always switch lives generally when we are doing single pole switching. We don't put it in the ground conductor ever, and we don't put it in the neutral conductor. So that's where the switches go. On the right-hand diagram, however, we see what's known as a double pole single throw switch, in that now we are throwing the switch on both conductors. That would be the live conductor and the neutral conductor. You often see this for much larger, heavier circuits, and you also see it for single-phase circuits being pulled from a three-phase system. And we'll get into the reasons why when we talk about that later on in this particular book. Now, to translate that into some actual applications, we can see here that we have a variety of these types of switches, such as indicated down the bottom, SPST, which is single pole, single throw, as indicated in figure 7a. We have SPDT, single pole, double throw. That's what I would typically refer to as a two-way switch that you would see, for example, in your hallway, where you can turn the lights on or off from either end of the hallway, i.e. from one or two switches. The next one there, DPST, that's double pole, single throw. And then finally, you can see double pole, double throw. You don't often see those particular ones, but you do see the first three. The main thing that you need to get out of switching arrangements is that you should never ever switch a ground conductor, or what I would refer to as an earthing conductor, or the circuit protective conductor. You never switch those. They always stay connected, because these are to protect us against electrical shock, and also to protect the equipment casing, for example, from becoming live under fault conditions. We generally switch lives, but we can also, of course, switch the neutrals in case of double pole switching. Now, all of those applications are all for single-phase circuits, but of course we can also do that on three-phase also. Now, in figure 8 of your textbook, we can see a couple of applications for that now. In the top diagram, we have our simple single pole, single throw switch that is now going to switch the electrical current on from our battery, our source of EMF. The electrical current will pass down through the switch across the electrical conductors, and it's now going to feed two lights that are connected in parallel. At the bottom of the diagram, we have the same arrangement, i.e. the same circuit, but as you can see now, both sides of the battery are being switched, i.e. both the live and the neutral. And the neutral is simply the return conductor, as we're talking here about DC circuits. So you can consider the positive as the live conductor and the negative as the neutral conductor. And again, we typically do this for much bigger circuits, or indeed for isolation of circuits. Okay, the last thing to mention then is that of three-phase switching. And we'll get into this later when we discuss three-phase circuits. But just because you see three-phase equipment in the power labs, for example, you should have an idea of what these look like. So what we're seeing here is for three-phase switching, we can either have a triple pole switch, which will switch all live conductors of the three-phase circuit, of course of which there are three. It does not switch the neutral or the ground conductor, so therefore only a triple pole switch. The circuit breaker on the right hand side of my slide here, this is a 4-pole switch. So in this example, it would be switching all live conductors and the neutral conductor. Now, even though the photograph I have on screen here are of circuit breakers, MCBs, miniature circuit breakers, it's important to realise that circuit breakers, or indeed any circuit protective device, should not be used for switching. It should be used for isolation and fault protection only. In other words, you don't go home and turn your lights on in your house by turning on the circuit breaker. You use the switch on the wall. The circuit breaker stays closed under normal occurrences, of course, unless of course there's a fault on the system, and then it will have to trip. So please bear that in mind for three-phase switching or any other switching, for example. If we're using circuit breakers, don't use them as a means of switching, use them as a means of circuit protection. There will be another control switch somewhere else in the circuit that you can turn the power on and off with. Okay, that's really all we need to talk about then for describing basic electrical circuits and looking at their main components of. So pretty straightforward and quick objective, this one. Give it a little bit of a review, and then when you're ready, come back and see me for objective 3, and we'll start to get into the nitty-gritty and the meat and potatoes of this concepts, and we'll talk about the cornerstone of electrical power engineering, something referred to as Ohm's law, and how it applies to single resistor circuits. So I'm looking forward to that one. I'll see you back soon. Take care.